Welcome to the deep dive, the place where we really try to take the most challenging information and distill it down into that confident, actionable knowledge you need.
And today, oh boy, we are diving deep into maybe the most universally dreaded prompt.
Yeah.
That moment, someone, a recruiter, maybe a new acquaintance, just looks you right in the eye and asks, "So tell me about yourself."
Ugh. The ultimate test, right? It just feels overwhelming. Mostly because it's so incredibly broad. Like, what are they even asking for? My whole life story, what I did this morning.
Yeah, that sort of internal panic is completely warranted.
Yeah.
Because as career experts often point out, this is usually the very first question you get asked.
Right at the start.
In that first minute, maybe even less. It's absolutely critical. It really sets the entire tone for whatever interaction comes next, whether it's a high-stakes interview or just, a casual networking chat.
That first impression really sticks.
It often does.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
Okay, but that pressure also gives us a really clear mission for today, doesn't it? We're going to take all this structured advice, mostly from professional sources, and figure out how to apply it to any conversation.
Right.
So you can deliver an introduction that's confident, clear, but also feels, well, natural. And we want to weave in some of those C1, C2 English fluency markers, too.
Exactly. We'll cover the essentials, how to talk about your location, your career path, your passions, your goals, but maybe more importantly, we're giving you the language tools, those natural conversational connectors,
The things that make it sound less like you're reading a script.
and more like you're actually having a real engaging conversation.
Okay, perfect. Let's dive in. All right, let's just unpack this right away.
Yeah.
Why do people, especially in professional settings, even use such an open-ended question? It almost feels designed to be difficult.
Well, it's interesting. It's usually not about testing if you can recite your entire life history off the top of your head.
Okay, that's a relief.
Yeah. Leadership coaches often point out that it serves a few different functions psychologically. For the interviewer, it's actually a pretty effective icebreaker. It helps them transition, out of the small talk phase and into the more, let's say, structured part of the meeting. It's kind of a way for them to get their own bearings, too.
So it's like a conversational gear shift for them, not just a pop quiz for me. I see.
Yes, precisely. And there's another really crucial function that career coaches like Aldea highlight. Your answer. It tells the listener where the conversation should probably go next.
Right, you're setting the direction.
Exactly. The audience, whether it's that recruiter or maybe a potential client or even just a new friend, they need to quickly grasp why you're relevant to the chat they're about to have. It basically hands you the microphone to explain your purpose right there.
Okay, so if I launch into this detailed story about my passion for, I don't know, competitive dog grooming, but I'm actually interviewing for a software engineering role, I've just completely missed the mark, set the conversation down a weird path.
You got it. It's all about setting the stage for what comes next, showing how your personal narrative, your story, logically leads you to this specific moment, this conversation.
Makes sense.
And, you really need to be alert to the different ways this prompt can show up. It's not always going to be those exact words, "Tell me about yourself."
Oh, yeah. Like what else?
Well, you might hear things like, "Walk me through your resume," or maybe something softer like, "I'd love to hear more about your journey," or just describe yourself, or even tell me a little bit more about your background. Some sources, like Indeed, even warn you to be ready for a curveball like, "Tell me something about yourself that's not on your resume."
Ooh, that's a tricky one.
It can be, but really all of these variations, they fundamentally demand the same thing, a tailored, structured, relevant response.
Okay, so that brings us neatly to what sounds like the absolute most important rule here. Tailoring the answer, that principle of relevance. Because I think a lot of us probably have a default about me spiel practiced, right? And the sources are basically saying that's a huge missed opportunity.
It's the cardinal rule, honestly.
Right.
You have to tailor what you say to your audience. A career coach, Tina Waskovich, put it really well. She said the unspoken part of the question is always, "Tell me about yourself as it relates to this job and this company."
Oh,
Okay, so this is really your one big chance right at the start to concisely connect your skills, your experience, even your passions, directly to whatever need is sitting right there in front of you.
can we make that really concrete? Give a strong example of aligning like that.
Sure. Let's say you're applying to a nonprofit, and their whole mission is about sustainable energy.
Okay.
Now, maybe your background is mostly, say, database management, which seems unrelated, right?
Yeah, on the surface.
But if you're tailoring your answer, you absolutely must find a way to weave in maybe your personal commitment to environmental responsibility.
Hmm.
The advice is clear. Mention any green skills you're working on or maybe volunteer work you've done that lines up with their cause.
Got it.
In that specific context, just talking about how much you love optimizing database queries, probably not going to cut it. You need to show your personal drive aligns with their mission.
And that tailoring goes beyond just the topic, right? It extends down to the specific language we use. This feels really key for that C1, C2 fluency goal.
Oh, absolutely. Using the keywords your audience uses shows you've done your homework, that you understand their specific world.
How so?
Well, if you've researched them, you'll know, do they call themselves a boutique agency or are they a global conglomerate? Do they talk about their writing as a publication or just a blog?
Ah, subtle but important.
Very. Using their specific terms signals that you get it. You understand the nuances of their particular environment, their ecosystem.
Mhm.
And of course, this tailoring applies outside of job interviews too.
Right, in more casual settings.
Yeah, it just means sharing things that are appropriate for that setting. You know, you might talk about your marathon training if you're at a health and wellness event,
Makes sense.
but you'd probably focus more on your experience with venture capital if you're at a startup pitch night. It's all about context.
Okay, so relevance is king. But even if we know what to talk about, there's still the danger of just rambling, going on and on.
Yeah.
How do we avoid sounding like we're giving an hour-long documentary on ourselves?
Structure. Structure is absolutely the antidote to rambling. And the career experts we looked at, they strongly recommend two main organizational structures or formulas that give your answer a logical flow. It's present, past, future, or sometimes past, present, future.
Right.
Just the simple act of imposing one of these chronological frameworks helps keep you focused and stops you from getting lost down irrelevant rabbit holes.
Okay, let's break those down. Let's start with the one that seems most common, especially for interviews. Present, past, future. PPF. Why start with the present?
Well, it's super effective because you immediately lead with what's most valuable and most recent. It grabs attention right away with relevance.
Okay, so how does it work, step by step?
Right. So, step one, present. You talk about your current role, what it involves, the scope, and crucially, you highlight a big recent accomplishment, something that ideally mirrors the requirements of the job or context you're in. This is your prime real estate.
Got it. Lead with the good stuff.
Exactly. Step two, past. Now, you briefly explain how you got here, what's the relevant backstory, but, and this is important, you only focus on the previous experiences that were really instrumental in developing the skills you're using now or the skills needed for the next step.
So connect the dots, but quickly.
Very quickly, like maybe 30 seconds max here. You're just providing context. And then step three, future. This is the clincher. You pivot smoothly toward your aspirations. What are you looking to do next? And this is key. Why is this specific conversation, this opportunity, the logical, necessary next step in your professional story?
Ah, okay. And that future part is where we can naturally weave in those higher level phrases we want learners to use, right? Things like, I'm hoping to transition into, or I'd love to leverage my experience to.
Yes, absolutely. Let's maybe illustrate with a couple of examples. Imagine someone who's had a fairly linear career path, moving up within the same industry.
Okay.
Their PPF might sound something like this. So, I currently lead a team of 4 product managers, and we're focused mainly on SaaS integration. That's the present. Before this, I actually spent about 5 years really deep in UX design for smaller startups, which gave me a, well, profound appreciation for agile development. That's the past, connecting the skill. And now I'd really love the chance to apply that technical depth while managing a larger, maybe more strategically significant portfolio, which is exactly why I'm so keen to discuss the director role here at Stellar Core, that's the future, linking to the specific opportunity.
Wow, yeah, that flow is really smooth. Just
No,
makes
yeah.
sense. But what if you're not on such a straight path? What if you're, like, changing careers? The sources suggested maybe starting with the past might be better then.
That's exactly right. That's where the other structure, past, present, future, comes into play. If your current job isn't really relevant to where you want to go, you absolutely need to lead with a foundational experience that does set you up for this new direction.
Okay. Give us an example of that one.
Sure. Let's imagine a career changer. Well, I actually started my career in account management. And in that role, I developed a really strong grasp of client communication and also quarterly revenue forecasting. That's the past, highlighting transferable skills. Now, for the last 2 years, I've basically been teaching myself Python and SQL on the side, and I've built up a portfolio of data analysis projects, that's the present, showing initiative and new skills. So now I'm actively hoping to blend that sort of rigorous client-facing background with my new technical skills by moving into a business intelligence role, which is really what excites me about your data consulting division here. And that's the future, connecting it all.
Okay, I see how that works. Lead with the relevant history of the present isn't the main story. But I noticed in both of those, the future part feels a little bit bold. Doesn't talking so much about what you want next sound kind of presumptuous, especially early on?
That's a really great question, and it's something people worry about. Alday's advice is helpful here. It only really sounds presumptuous if you frame it like a demand.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
The goal isn't to say, give me this job.
Yeah.
The goal is to frame your future aspiration as the logical, compelling outcome of your past or present, if you've built your narrative correctly.
Uh-huh.
That future segment shouldn't sound like entitlement. It should sound like, look, my journey so far has perfectly prepared me to take on this specific mission or role. It just fits.
So the closing feeling should be inevitability, almost.
Kind of, yeah. The critical thing, no matter which formula you choose, PPF or past, present, future, is that the listener should walk away thinking, okay, yeah, it makes total sense that this person is sitting here talking to me about this. You've basically manufactured a logical connection through your story.
Okay, structure nailed. Relevance understood. Now let's talk about the actual content within that structure and the pacing. The sources seem unanimous on one thing. Keep it brief.
Oh, absolutely. Brevity is key.
What's the sort of golden time frame we're aiming for, and why is going over that seen as such a red flag?
Yeah, the consensus among pretty much all the career experts is to keep that professional intro concise. Ideally, somewhere between, say, 1.5 to 2.5 minutes. Maybe 90 seconds to 2.5 minutes.
That's not very long when you think about it.
It's really not. And any longer than that, you seriously risk boring your listener. Worse, as Alina Campos specifically points out, rambling in your introduction. It gets interpreted as a preview of how you'll communicate in meetings later on.
Oh, interesting. So being concise is actually demonstrating a professional skill in itself.
Exactly. It shows discipline, focus, respect for the other person's time.
Okay, so within those tight 2 minutes or so, we need real impact. We can't just list our job duties from the description. We need to focus on accomplishments.
Totally.
And the best way to make accomplishments hit hard is quantification, right? Using numbers.
Absolutely. The mantra is basically show, don't tell. Instead of just using vague descriptions like I improved things, you need to back it up with hard numbers whenever possible. Even if they're estimates or ranges, that's okay. Quantifiable results are what prove your actual impact.
Right. Let's get really deep into this quantification idea. Can you give us a few solid examples across different kinds of roles, not just the obvious sales metrics?
Yeah, definitely. Let's think. One, okay, for sales or customer service. Instead of saying, I improved customer relations, you do something specific like, I consistently increased our team's customer service response rates each quarter, usually by about 10% to 15%. Or maybe, I managed a client portfolio that resulted in a 25% increase in repeat business in Q3 alone. See the difference?
Yeah, much more concrete. Okay, what about something like tech or design?
Right, tech design. So rather than, I made the website better, you'd quantify it. I led the revamp of our main ticket purchasing page. We actually decreased the average purchasing friction time by 43%, which directly boosted our conversion rates by about 8%.
Wow, okay. That's specific. What about HR or training?
HR training. Instead of just, I onboarded new hires efficiently, try. I developed and implemented a new hybrid onboarding module. We tracked it, and it reduced the average ramp-up time for new employees from 12 weeks down to just 8 weeks.
That's a clear saving, even for roles that feel more qualitative, like research.
Yeah, even qualitative roles like academic research or maybe policy analysis. Instead of saying, I conducted research, you could quantify the output or impact. For instance, over the last 4 years, I published 12 peer-reviewed articles in leading journals, and they've achieved an average citation rate of 15 per article, which significantly increased the visibility of our department's work within the field.
Those specific numbers just stick in your mind, don't they? They make the claims feel real and memorable.
Exactly. And while we're on achievements, we also have to talk about the 2 types of skills you need to highlight.
Right, the hard skills and the soft skills.
Correct. You definitely need to mention your hard skills, those technical abilities, coding languages like React, maybe financial modeling, implementing a specific system like SAP, things you can prove you know how to do. But especially for C1, C2 level communication, you need sophisticated language to describe your soft skills too. Don't just say, I'm a good communicator.
Right, too basic. What's better?
Try something like, I'm particularly adept at synthesizing complex technical data and then translating it effectively for non-specialist audiences. Or instead of just, I'm a team player, maybe, I excel at fostering cross-functional leadership, and I frequently bridge communication gaps between departments like engineering and marketing. It shows a deeper understanding of the skill.
That definitely sounds more advanced. Okay, but if we only focus on skills and numbers, don't we risk sounding a bit robotic, like a walking resume? How do we inject that crucial human element?
Ah, yes. You inject genuine, palpable passion. The sources hit this point again and again. People hire humans, not just skill sets on paper.
Right.
So use language that actually shows your enthusiasm. Something like, I'm incredibly passionate about solving systemic inefficiencies, which is honestly why I was so genuinely attracted to the mission statement of this organization. Feel the difference.
Yeah, that lands differently. And the anecdotal hook, a short personal story, that seems like a really powerful tool for this too.
It really is.
Yeah.
One source mentioned this great example of a special education administrator.
Huh?
She shared very briefly how she was actually a former student in that same system herself, and how her teachers had inspired her, and that became her core motivation for doing the work. It's
Wow.
that brief, powerful, personal touch. It creates an immediate emotional connection, and it makes her instantly stand out from applicants who just listed qualifications. It feels authentic, memorable.
Okay, makes sense. Now, quickly, we need to address the tricky stuff. Handling negative parts of your work history, like layoffs, getting fired, gaps on the resume. The introduction is definitely not the time for a deep dive into any of that, correct?
Oh, absolutely not, no. The narrative you present in your introduction must remain positive and forward-looking. That's critical.
So avoid bad-mouthing anyone.
Definitely avoid bad-mouthing past employers or colleagues. And don't dwell on setbacks. If you do have, say, a noticeable gap on your resume, the standard advice is to frame that time in a positive light.
How would you do that?
Well, instead of just admitting, yeah, I was unemployed for 6 months, you could say something like, actually, I leveraged that period between roles to complete a rigorous PMP certification, and I also dedicated significant time to volunteer consulting for a local charity, which helped ensure my project management skills remain sharp and highly relevant.
Okay. Focus on the proactive things you did.
Exactly. You only get into the specifics of, say, a layoff if a direct follow-up question forces the issue later in the conversation, but not in the intro. Keep it positive, keep it moving forward.
All right, let's pivot now. We've spent a lot of time perfecting that kind of formal, often professional pitch structure, but the real goal here is C1, C2 fluency in any situation.
Exactly.
So how do we take those core principles, structure, relevance, passion, and adapt them for a more general, natural introduction? The kind where you're just meeting someone new and want to show your personality without, being dull or boring.
Well, the good news is those core principles still absolutely hold true. Structure helps, passion connects. But the content naturally shifts away from just career alignment towards building more of an interpersonal connection.
Okay.
We need to focus on the elements that help people relate to you as a whole person, not just a job title.
That makes sense. So where do we start? Maybe location and background. For an advanced speaker, just saying I'm from Brazil or I'm from Chicago feels a bit basic. How can we talk about origin and where we live now in a more sophisticated, natural way?
Yeah, we need language that can handle slightly more complex stories because people's lives often are complex, right?
Totally.
So you've got a few options depending on your situation. For a simple origin current base, you could say, I'm originally from São Paulo, but I'm currently based in London. Simple, clear. If there's relocation or transition, maybe something like, I was born and raised in California, and now I live and work in New York, although, I do sometimes miss the quieter pace back on the West Coast.
Adding that little preference detail.
Exactly. Or for a more complex history, maybe lots of moves or living abroad. Well, I grew up predominantly in Europe. We kind of hopped between London and Geneva because of my parents' work, but I'm now permanently settled in Toronto.
Yeah.
And even for temporary living situations, like one of the source examples. Well, I belong to Muntal Kurd in Bhiwani, but right now I am living in Fathabad with my friend while I finish up my degree.
That small detail you mentioned, like missing the quiet West Coast, that's what really turns it from just a factual statement into an actual conversation starter, doesn't it?
It really does. It gives the other person an opening. They can jump in and say, oh, really? I love the quiet too. Or, oh, I'm the opposite. I need the buzz of the city. It creates that immediate opportunity for connection, for reciprocity.
Okay, good point. Next up, passions and hobbies. This feels like the ultimate way to connect with someone. How do we talk about what we love doing using that strong C1, C2 level language?
Yeah, we definitely want to move beyond just saying, I like. We need more powerful, emphatic phrasing to show genuine enthusiasm.
So what are some good options?
Well, you could emphasize dedication. Lately, I'm completely absorbed by restoring vintage motorbikes. I pretty much dedicate most weekends to my garage.
Okay, completely absorbed by. I like that.
Or show strong interest. I'm really into reading classic mystery novels. Or
Mm,
perhaps I'm passionate about long-distance running. Actually, I've completed 3 marathons so far.
nice. Using passionate about.
Or focus on the time commitment.
Hmm,
I spend most of my free time hiking and trying to find new, challenging trails in the area. It just sounds more engaged than I like hiking.
definitely. And is there still value in linking hobbies back to professional traits, even if it's a more casual chat?
Sometimes, yeah. It can be a subtle way to add another layer.
Yeah.
Mentioning your passion for, say, learning the guitar doesn't just say you like music. It also hints at personal discipline,
Right.
commitment to mastering something new.
Hmm.
Or if you play a team sport, that naturally suggests teamwork skills, collaboration. The key is maybe showing things like intellectual curiosity, community involvement, or just dedication through these personal pursuits. It rounds out the picture.
Okay. Let's shift to describing personality. This can feel awkward. How do we talk about our character traits naturally without just sounding like we're listing adjectives from a self-help book?
Yeah, it can feel stiff. Using framing statements helps a lot. Instead of just saying I'm motivated, I describe myself as generally quite self-motivated, or people usually say I'm pretty adaptable.
Mm,
It softens it a bit.
right.
And the sources gave some good examples of strengths people mentioned. Things like dedicated, patient, a positive thinker. One person even offered something quite unique. I'm a philosopher and believer of God, which immediately signals a focus on big picture thinking and maybe ethics.
Interesting. Okay, now for the really tricky one. Weaknesses. We all know the cliches to avoid, like, I'm a perfectionist or I work too hard.
Right, the humble brags, don't do those.
So how do we apply that reframing rule here? How do we talk about a genuine weakness in a way that actually shows self-awareness, not just trying to sound good?
Okay, this is crucial. You need a weakness that feels real, is specific, and ideally shows you're already working on it. The key is to immediately follow up the weakness with what you are actively doing to mitigate it or improve.
Okay, so give me an example. Instead of I'm a workaholic.
Right. Instead of that, maybe try something like, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes struggle with delegating tasks effectively because I often believe I can just complete them faster myself. So I've actually started using specific project management software to consciously track delegation and force myself to hand off tasks more, which ultimately improves overall team efficiency.
Ah, see. Specific problem, specific solution you're implementing.
Exactly. Or remember that example from the sources, the software engineer, Umar.
Yeah.
He said something like, I sometimes spend too much time debugging code on my own before asking for help. But then he immediately followed up by explaining he'd implemented a personal 30-minute rule, try for 30 minutes, then escalate. That shows commitment to both being thorough and using team resources efficiently.
That's really good. It turns the weakness into a story of improvement.
Precisely. Even something that sounds quite vulnerable, like maybe I tend to trust people quite easily. You must follow that by explaining how you manage that risk. Perhaps by saying, so I've learned to build in more structured vetting processes, especially in professional contexts. The focus shifts to your proactive management of the trait.
Got it. Okay, last piece in this section. Goals and future direction. Talking about where we're headed personally or professional.
Yeah, this loops back to the future segment we discussed earlier, but it can be broader in a casual context. Use that aspirational language. I'd love to eventually grow into a role where I can lead development projects, or maybe more personally, I'm hoping to really enhance my knowledge base in climate science so I can eventually volunteer more effectively with local conservation efforts.
And the key advice here is don't just state the goal.
Right. Don't just state the goal like it's a wish.
Hmm.
Imply, or even briefly state, the active steps you're already taking towards it. Show the dedication behind the dream, whether that dream is getting a specific respected position or simply, as one source put it, becoming a more successful, contributing person overall. Show the work.
Okay, we have covered so much ground. We have the structure, we've got the relevant content, we know how to inject personality. Now for the final polish. How do we make this whole thing sound like a truly fluent, natural back-and-forth conversation at that C1, C2 level, instead of just reciting a well-structured monologue?
Yeah, this is where it all comes together. And honestly, it boils down to two main things: balance and reciprocity.
Okay.
Think Dale Carnegie's classic advice, which, modern psychology research basically backs up. Don't just brag or talk endlessly about yourself. You absolutely have to show genuine interest in the other person, too.
And probably the most common mistake people make, especially when they're nervous, is using that "tell me about yourself" prompt as an excuse to just talk and talk and talk.
It's so easy to do. So we need some clear rules for engagement, for the actual flow. First, like we said, keep your own parts concise. Brevity matters.
Right.
Second, and this is maybe the most crucial habit to practice, consciously take turns. If you catch yourself starting to ramble, just stop. Stop the narrative and immediately pivot. Use a turn-taking phrase like, okay, wow, that was quite a bit about me. I'd love to hear what brings you here today. Or, enough about my background. Tell me about you.
Actively hand the conversational baton over.
Exactly. And then, while the other person is speaking, you can't just sit there silently waiting for your next turn. An advanced speaker shows active engagement.
How do we do that effectively?
Well, you use those little verbal signals that show you're listening. Affirming sounds like, uh-huh, okay, I see. Or short comments like, right, yeah, or that's fascinating.
Just back-channeling cues.
Exactly. And nonverbal cues are huge, too. Obviously, making eye contact, maybe leaning in slightly, resisting that urge to interrupt constantly.
Yeah.
Some coaches even suggest consciously waiting, like maybe 2 or 3 seconds after the other person finishes their thought before you jump in.
Oh, interesting. Why?
It just ensures you've actually processed what they said, and it massively reduces the chance of accidentally talking over them, which can feel really dismissive.
Good tip. Okay, now let's get into that advanced linguistic toolkit. Those essential conversational connectors that really signal a higher level of fluency, moving beyond just basic conjunctions.
Right. We need phrases that show relationship between ideas, add nuance, signal agreement or disagreement smoothly, things beyond just and, but, so.
Okay, hit us with some key examples.
Right, let's try a few. 1, for seeking agreement or shared understanding. That little tag, at the end of a statement. Like, it was a really stressful move, It invites connection. 2, for pivoting or relating experiences. That's funny because it's great for sharing a parallel or maybe a contrasting story. Oh, that's funny because I had the exact same problem with my car just last month.
Nice. Sure.
For introducing a bit of vulnerability or sincerity, to be honest. This signals you're sharing something genuine or maybe slightly personal. To be honest, I was extremely nervous walking into this meeting.
Yeah, that feels authentic.
4, for hedging or adding nuance. This is very C1, C2. Phrases like, I tend to think. It softens a strong opinion, shows context matters. I tend to think that the long-term plan is more effective, but of course it really depends on the specific project.
Right. Avoid sounding dogmatic.
All right. For contrasting information smoothly, instead of just, but, try. Having said that, it's a much more fluid transition when introducing a counterpoint. The initial budget was incredibly tight. Having said that, we still managed to deliver the project ahead of schedule.
Good one.
6, for emphasis or certainty. Use sparingly, maybe. An idiom like, no two ways about it, signals absolute conviction. It was definitely the hardest project I worked on last year, no two ways about it.
Okay.
7, and for creating shared experience. As you can imagine, this phrasing draws the listener into your perspective, assuming some shared understanding. So the workload basically doubled overnight, as you can imagine.
Incorporating those kinds of connectors, especially the hedging and contrasting ones, really does seem like it would make the whole conversation flow much better. Less choppy, more, well, natural.
Totally. It adds that layer of sophistication and authenticity we're aiming for.
Right.
And this really all loops back to that final, maybe most important piece of expert advice, the kind you hear from coaches like Annie Lynn.
Which is?
Focus on just being present. Genuinely listen to the other person. If your primary goal is forming a real human connection, you'll naturally start to adapt what you say, including your introduction, to what actually matters in that specific moment. You won't just be mechanically reciting a script you memorized.
So true fluency isn't just about having the right words.
It's about flexibility, connection, and responding authentically in the moment. #tag outro.
Wow. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground today trying to master that crucial first interaction. So just to quickly summarize the big takeaways, Always try to use a structure, like present, past, future. Prioritize relevance above absolutely everything else. Remember that structure. That's really your key to feeling confident.
Yeah, and don't forget to inject your genuine passion. Use those quantifiable achievements, those hard numbers. Really prove your impact. And then weave in those conversational details about your location, your hobbies, your goals, using the kinds of natural advanced C1, C2 markers we just practiced.
Yeah.
Make it sound like you.
The source material kept reminding us that feeling shy or nervous is often the hardest part of any introduction. But hopefully, after today, you can maybe view that prompt, tell me about yourself, not as some terrifying test,
Right.
but more as what it really is, an invitation, a deliberate invitation to just share the relevant, engaging parts of who you are and start building a real connection.
Well said. So, maybe to leave you all with a thought for the week. Given that the goal is to sound authentic and passionate, just think about this. What's one small, genuine, maybe even slightly quirky detail about your personality or your background that you could potentially share the next time you introduce yourself in English? Something that can make that conversation truly memorable.
Yeah, don't just stick to the safe, obvious stuff. Maybe it really is the fact that you're obsessed with olives, even though most people you know don't like them. Or maybe it's that story about the time you got completely lost on a hike and genuinely had to navigate back using just the constellation Orion. Find that unique, authentic little hook that only you can offer.
And then use that story. Practice that structure. Next time you hear them words, tell me about yourself. Hopefully, you'll feel prepared, structured, and genuinely ready to connect.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to our next dive together.